make her chase you without playing games. She didn't forget you, she just never thought about you in that way. You text first, you ask her out, you wait for her replies, and still you feel invisible. Ever feel like the harder you try, the more you're pushed aside? Modern dating has men pouring effort into people who never truly valued them. You gave attention, she gave silence. You offered loyalty, she offered indifference. And every time you told yourself, maybe next time she'll see your worth. She won't, unless you become someone she can't ignore. Comment, no more chasing if you're done giving energy to people who take you for granted. Number 1. Be calm, not desperate. Be calm, not desperate. Because desperation doesn't just push people away, it destroys the foundation of self-respect you need to build anything meaningful. And you know exactly what I mean. If you've ever sat with your phone in your hand, rereading a message she hasn't responded to for hours or even days, wondering what you did wrong, doubting yourself, rewriting your words in your head 1,000 times, hoping to find the moment you messed up when deep down, you didn't mess up. You just cared too much too quickly and she didn't. And the moment you started seeking her validation, you shifted the balance. You gave her power. You gave her control over your emotions, your sleep, your confidence. And the more effort you showed, the more distant she became, because attention is only valued when it's earned. And when it's handed out freely, it becomes background noise, and she stops seeing you as someone to admire and starts viewing you as someone easy to forget. And you might think being nice or being persistent shows strength, but in reality, it reveals a lack of emotional discipline, because people, especially those who've been conditioned by endless options and attention, don't value what they didn't have to work for. And that means if you're always showing up first, always being available, always bending over backward to make her feel comfortable while ignoring your own discomfort, what you're actually saying is, my needs don't matter, and that's not attractive. It's invisible. And every time you drop what you're doing to reply instantly, every time you double text, every time you rearrange your schedule for someone who won't even give you clarity, you train them to take you for granted. And the worst part is, you know it. You feel it deep inside when you lie to your friends saying you're busy while you wait around hoping she'll text. When you pretend to be okay with her flaking, just to not lose the little crumbs she's giving you. But let me tell you, respect starts where self-abandonment ends. And until you stop placing her opinion above your own peace, you will never be seen as anything other than disposable. And the harsh truth is, most people don't know how to appreciate presence until it becomes absence. And that means the only real power you have is detachment, not coldness, not manipulation, but true emotional independence, where your sense of worth is not tied to how someone treats you or how often they respond, where you can enjoy someone's company but not be afraid to lose it, because your life is already full, your standards are already high, your path is already clear, and you know that anyone who enters your space is a guest, not a savior. And I know that sounds hard to accept when you've been conditioned to think love is about sacrifice and chasing and proving your worth. But what if the opposite was true? What if the moment you stop proving and start living, everything changes? What if the version of you who doesn't care whether she stays or leaves is the version she actually wants? And what if you've been losing yourself trying to be chosen instead of choosing yourself first? Because calm isn't passive, it's powerful. It's what happens when you know your value so deeply that silence isn't awkward. Time alone isn't scary. Being misunderstood doesn't bother you, and walking away from disrespect is easy. And you get there not by reading quotes or repeating affirmations, but by doing the work. Waking up early even when you feel tired. Staying committed even when motivation dies. Setting boundaries even when you fear losing people. And it's in those quiet moments where you keep your word to yourself that your energy changes. And suddenly you don't need to say anything to make people respect you. They just do, because they can feel that you're not chasing anything outside of you to feel whole. And from that place, you stop overreacting to delays, to cold responses, to games, because your emotions are not up for negotiation. And when she sees that you're not flinching, not following, not waiting, she either steps up or steps out. And either way, you win. And the beauty of this mindset is that it applies to everything, not just relationships. Because if you can stay calm when others expect you to chase, you can stay focused when life gets hard. You can make better decisions when everyone else is panicking, and you stop living life trying to prove yourself to people who don't even know what they want. And instead, you become someone people remember because you're rare. And in a world addicted to validation and noise, stillness becomes the loudest frequency. And you create that not by pretending to be above it all, but by facing your insecurities head-on, asking yourself why you feel the need to chase someone who doesn't value you, why you feel anxious when they take long to reply, why you feel empty when you're alone. And the deeper you go into those answers, the freer you become. And then the next time someone pulls back or gives mixed signals, you won't react. You'll observe, you won't chase, you'll choose, and that choice will change everything, because you'll no longer be available to confusion, to disrespect, to being an option, because you've become a person of direction, a person of clarity. And anyone who wants to be part of your life will need to meet you where you are, not drag you into chaos. And that's the kind of calm that can't be faked, can't be forced, can't be ignored. And once you have it, once you embody it, you won't just stop chasing. You'll start attracting on a level that doesn't require explanation, because energy doesn't lie. And the energy of someone who is whole on their own can't be resisted. And that's the kind of man who gets respect, who gets attention, who gets options. Not because he begged for them, but because he earned them by first becoming someone he himself respects. And if you're ready to become that man, the one who no longer chases chaos, but walks with inner stillness and direction, then now is your moment. Because the Stoic Relationship Blueprint audiobook is finally available. And it's not just a book, it's the foundation, filled with timeless principles that have guided the most disciplined and self-controlled minds through the deepest pain, betrayal, confusion, and silence without losing themselves. And now, you can carry that same wisdom with you wherever you go. Plug in your earphones and let the lessons speak to you while you walk, jog, or sit alone reflecting on everything you've survived, because this isn't a book you read once and forget. This is one you'll return to when your mind starts doubting, when emotions pull you off balance, when people ghost, lie, confuse, or try to make you feel like you're not enough. This book will always be yours, always accessible, always ready to remind you who you are and who you never need to become again. So don't wait. Don't wonder if it's worth it. Ask yourself this: how much longer will you keep repeating the same cycles before you finally decide to lead your life instead of reacting to it? The link is in the comments. Start today. Number 2. Keep her curious. The moment she feels like she knows everything about you is the moment she stops thinking about you. And what most people don't understand is that curiosity isn't built by playing games. It's destroyed by overexposure. Because the second you start explaining every move, every thought, every emotion, you hand over the mystery that made you interesting in the first place. And that's where everything starts to go wrong. Because what keeps people drawn in isn't your presence. It's your unpredictability, your silence when expected to speak, your depth that isn't offered easily. And the problem is you've been conditioned to think communication equals connection, when in reality, access without scarcity is how attraction dies. And if you're always the first to text, the one to over-explain, the one revealing all your cards on day one, then you're not being authentic. You're being easy to read, and people do not chase what they can predict, because when something becomes predictable, it loses its edge. and when it loses its edge, it becomes boring. And boredom is a death sentence in attraction, especially in a culture addicted to novelty. And you know this because you've felt it, you've lived it. You've given someone the best of you too early, thinking vulnerability was the way in. But all it did was make you forgettable, and it's not your fault entirely. You were taught that being honest meant laying it all out, showing her you trust her. But what you weren't told is that attraction doesn't live in transparency. It lives in tension, and tension is created by contrast. Not confusion, but the feeling of wanting to know more. The energy that says there's more to you than what you've shown. And if you give that all away at once, you become a closed book with no pages left to turn. And that's what happened the last time you told her your every thought, your every struggle, your exact daily routine. And now she barely replies. Now she doesn't ask questions. Now she's always busy, because you gave her what she didn't earn. And anything not earned is rarely respected. So understand this deeply. Your silence has more power than your words when it's backed by presence, when it's not forced, when it comes from a place of strength, not passivity. And the more you reveal only what needs to be revealed, the more intrigue you create, because what people can't figure out, they think about, and when they think about it, they start investing emotionally. And when they invest emotionally, they chase, and that's the shift. You stop pouring out energy and start becoming the space where attention gathers. But to do that, you need to stop making your validation someone else's responsibility. You need to stop filling silence with noise. You need to stop trying to impress with detail, because detail is only impressive when it's earned. And you earn that interest by being someone who holds back not to play games, but because you know you're not obligated to explain yourself to be valuable. You become someone who is willing to let the unknown work in your favor. Someone who's not afraid of being misunderstood at first. Because the ones worth keeping will stay curious, will dig deeper, will ask questions instead of walking away when you don't make it easy. And you build that level of magnetism by becoming someone whose identity isn't broadcasted, but discovered. Someone who isn't telling every story, sharing every goal, expressing every emotion the moment it arises, because you've grown out of needing attention to feel worthy. And when you reach that level of control, your words become rare, and what's rare becomes valuable, and what's valuable is chaste. And if you're thinking this doesn't work in the real world, then ask yourself why the people you can't stop thinking about aren't the ones who told you everything. They're the ones who left questions unanswered. And that's not manipulation. That's the nature of the human mind. We pursue what we don't fully understand, and we walk away from what becomes obvious. So don't be obvious, don't be loud, be intentional. And that means when she asks what you're doing tomorrow, you don't give her your whole plan. You give her just enough. I've got a few things lined up, because that one sentence leaves room for imagination, and imagination builds emotional investment, and investment builds curiosity. And when she starts wondering, she starts checking, she starts reading between the lines, she starts thinking about you even when you're not around. And that's how you win. Not by forcing connection, but by creating the space where it happens naturally, and you don't get there by over-delivering. You get there by knowing that your value isn't something you need to prove through constant updates, it's something people feel when you no longer seek permission to be reserved, and it will trigger some people because they're used to access without boundaries. But those people aren't meant to stay, because the ones who stay will stay because they're intrigued, not entitled, and they'll earn their way into your story, one page at a time. And the moment you see your own energy as something sacred, you'll stop offering it like a discount and start presenting it like it's limited edition, because that's what you are. Not common, not replaceable, not readable at first glance, but layered, thoughtful, and only understood by those who take the time to uncover what others overlook. And when you live this way, curiosity is no longer something you try to create. It becomes a natural byproduct of your presence, your discipline, your choices, and she won't say it, but she'll feel it. She'll feel the difference between you and the ones who talk too much, try too hard, and give too fast. And that difference is why she'll come back, why she'll stay invested, why she'll chase. Because you didn't give her everything for nothing. You made her earn the parts of you that matter, and that's what turns a maybe into obsession. Number 3. Build a full life. There's a reason why she stops replying when she knows you're waiting around for her. There's a reason why she starts pulling away when your entire day is open in case she changes her mind. And that reason is simple. People don't value what's always available. And what most men don't realize is that the biggest mistake they make isn't in what they say, it's in how they live. Because when your entire routine is built around checking your phone for her messages, when your calendar is empty, just in case she suddenly decides to give you a sliver of attention, when your days lack direction unless she's involved, you become replaceable in her mind. Not because you're not good enough, but because you're not grounded in something greater than her validation. And this is where most people lose themselves. They wait for someone else to give them a reason to be, a reason to push, a reason to show up. When the truth is, that reason has to come from within you, and if it doesn't, no relationship, no recognition, no reward will ever be enough to fill that void. And you know this already. You've felt it when you scroll for hours, numb, hoping she'll post something that gives you a reason to text. You felt it when you cancel on people who actually care about you, just to be emotionally available for someone who only sees you when it's convenient. And you justify it by telling yourself, it's just for now, or once we're together, it'll change. But it doesn't change, because what you tolerate becomes your truth. And if your life is empty, she'll treat it like a playground, not a priority. And if you want her to see you differently, you have to start living differently, not by pretending to be busy, but by actually filling your life with purpose. And purpose doesn't have to be some grand mission or perfect vision. It starts with direction, with showing up for yourself before showing up for anyone else. And that means you wake up and move your body even when you're tired. You learn something new every day even when it's boring. You commit to goals even when no one's watching. Because when you do these things consistently, you build inner gravity. And that gravity pulls the right people in and repels the wrong ones. And suddenly, you stop chasing because you're too busy building. And she feels that shift, not through words but through energy. She senses that your world doesn't revolve around her anymore. And that's when everything flips. Because now you're the one who's unavailable, not out of spite, but because you've got things to do, you've got people to see, you've got a future you're creating, and if she wants to be part of it, she'll have to bring more than presence. She'll have to bring value, consistency, and respect. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for most people, because building a full life forces you to let go of temporary attention in favor of long-term vision. And that means saying no to late-night texts that lead nowhere. That means turning down last-minute invites that ignore your standards. That means not compromising your time for someone who doesn't prioritize you. And yes, it feels lonely at first. It feels like you're missing out, like you're pushing people away. But what you're actually doing is clearing space for something better, for someone who doesn't drain your focus but adds to it. And you don't get there by hoping. You get there by acting, by structuring your day around growth instead of distraction. And it starts small. Write down 3 things you want to achieve this week. Break them into steps. Schedule time to do them. Hold yourself accountable. Track your progress. Repeat it next week. And what happens is, your brain starts shifting from reactive to proactive. And the more you do that, the more powerful you become, because now you're not waiting for life to happen. You're creating it. And that mindset is what separates someone who's overlooked from someone who's unforgettable, because confidence doesn't come from compliments. It comes from doing hard things and keeping your word. And when you operate like that, You don't need someone to tell you your worth. You already feel it. And that's the energy people are drawn to. Not the one who's desperate to be chosen, but the one who's already chosen themselves. And the irony is, the moment you stop needing her to notice you, she starts watching. She starts wondering. Because people chase what they don't control. And if your time, energy, and presence are no longer up for grabs, they become desirable. And that doesn't mean you become cold or unreachable. It means you become intentional. And from that place, you attract people who align with your path, not distract you from it. And it's in that alignment that everything changes. Because now, your life isn't built around a person. It's built around a purpose. And that purpose becomes your compass when emotions get messy, when people ghost, when plans fall apart, when you feel lost. And instead of collapsing, you adjust, because you've trained yourself to stay grounded in something real. And no matter what happens externally, that internal foundation stays strong, and that's what makes you attractive, not just in relationships, but in every room you walk into. Because presence isn't about being loud, it's about being clear. And clarity comes from structure, from vision, from discipline. And you build that by doing what others avoid, by choosing discomfort over ease, growth over entertainment, peace over chaos. And if you've ever wondered why some people seem to attract everything effortlessly, it's not luck, it's alignment. And that alignment is available to anyone who's willing to sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term fulfillment. And yes, it's harder. Yes, it's slower. But it's also permanent. Because once you've built that version of yourself, no one can take it away. And suddenly, the texts don't shake you. The rejection doesn't define you. The silence doesn't scare you. Because your life is so full that anyone who walks away only creates space for something better. And that is the most powerful place to live from, because when you don't need them, you attract the ones who are meant to stay, not because they complete you, but because they complement the life you've already built. Number 4, become the prize. You become the prize the moment you stop begging to be noticed and start building the kind of life that makes people question why they ever overlooked you. And this shift doesn't begin with a new wardrobe, a fake attitude, or trying to act like someone you saw online. It begins with a quiet but firm decision that you will no longer live to be chosen by someone else. Because the truth is, most people spend their lives trying to convince others to pick them, bending their standards, overgiving, compromising their dignity just to keep someone who barely sees their value. And this happens not because they don't have worth, but because they've forgotten how to act like they do. And you've been there. You've chased someone who showed interest only when they were bored. You've stayed available for someone who responded only when it was convenient. You've given more than you had, hoping it would finally be enough. And all it did was push them further away. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you didn't value yourself enough to stop giving what wasn't appreciated. And what most don't realize is, people treat you based on the example you give them. So if you show up ready to prove your worth, they assume it's not obvious. If you keep explaining yourself, they assume your actions don't speak loud enough. And if you stick around after being dismissed, they assume you'll accept anything just to be chosen. And in that moment, the dynamic flips. Now they become the prize, and you become the one fighting for approval. And that's where dignity dies. Slowly, silently. And if you don't wake up to it, you'll find yourself becoming a shadow in someone else's story, instead of the main character in your own. And here's the truth. Most aren't ready for. Being the prize isn't about being better than anyone. It's about knowing that you don't need to compete, don't need to chase, don't need to convince anyone to stay. And when you adopt that mindset, you stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to fix what isn't broken in you just because someone else doesn't understand your value. And you start living with a clarity that most people will never experience because they're too busy trying to keep people who don't want to be kept. And it starts with standards, with having the strength to walk away from anything that doesn't meet them, And that means you don't stay in conversations where you're being disrespected. You don't entertain relationships where you're only needed, not valued. You don't keep trying to impress people who are unimpressed by your presence, because you understand that your energy, your time, your body, your loyalty, they are expensive, not cheap. And the people who treat them like they're free are the ones who have no idea what real value looks like. And this mindset changes everything, because now you're not waiting for someone to notice you. You're deciding whether they deserve to be in your life. And the power in that can't be faked. It can't be bought. It comes from discipline, from building yourself in silence, from becoming someone whose peace isn't up for negotiation. Someone whose validation doesn't come from who texts back, but from who they see in the mirror every day. Someone they built, someone they're proud of, someone they trust. And that's what makes people stop and take notice. Not how loud you are, not how many followers you have, but the unshakable self-worth that radiates from someone who has done the work, who has lost, learned, healed, and now refuses to beg for what they can create on their own. And the moment you make this shift, your energy changes, your decisions change, and suddenly you stop texting first. Not because of ego, but because you're not chasing people who need reminders that you exist. You stop explaining yourself, not because you're rude, but because the people who get it don't need explanations. You stop trying to prove your intentions, not because you've given up, but because anyone worth keeping will already feel your authenticity without needing a speech. And this makes some people uncomfortable, especially those who only felt powerful when you doubted yourself. But let them be uncomfortable, because you're no longer living for their comfort. You're living for your peace. And anyone who threatens that peace doesn't belong, no matter how beautiful they are, how sweet their words sound, or how long you've known them. Because being the prize means you'd rather be alone in peace than surrounded in confusion. And if that means losing people who once made you feel seen, then so be it. Because the version of you that clings to breadcrumbs is not the version that becomes unforgettable. And you know this. Deep down, you've felt the emptiness that comes from shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's story, from lowering your volume just to keep the peace, from accepting silence when what you deserved was clarity. And the only way to stop that cycle is to become the person who stops trying to be chosen and starts becoming someone worth choosing. And that journey is not about perfection. It's about alignment, about knowing who you are, what you value, and what you refuse to tolerate. And it's in that clarity that you start to attract differently, not just in relationships, but in every area of your life, because the world mirrors how you treat yourself. And when you start treating yourself like the prize, the world responds accordingly, not always instantly, not always smoothly, but consistently. And over time, you'll find that the right people show up, not because you begged them, but because they recognize the value of what you built, and the wrong people disappear, not because you pushed them, but because they couldn't keep up with who you've become. And that's the power of self-respect. It cleans your life of anything that isn't aligned. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, you'll never go back to begging for attention, to shrinking yourself for love, to tolerating people who don't value you. Because you'll know that real love, real respect, real connection, it all starts with how you see yourself. And when you see yourself as the prize, everything else changes. Number 5, let her come to you. You don't need to chase what is meant for you, because what is real doesn't need to be forced. And the more you force it, the more you expose your own lack of value to the very person whose respect you're trying to earn. And if you're constantly initiating, always checking in, always proving that you care, then you become invisible in her world. Not because you're not a good person, but because you've made yourself too easy to reach, too predictable, too emotionally available to someone who hasn't earned that level of access. And what you don't realize is that attention without boundaries is self-betrayal. And if you constantly reach out to someone who barely reciprocates, if you respond instantly to someone who delays their replies for hours or days, you are telling them that your time, your peace, and your worth are negotiable. And in that moment, they stop seeing you as someone to chase and start seeing you as someone who chases. And no one desires what chases them consistently without friction or resistance. Because when a person always knows where to find you, when they always know you'll be there, no matter how little effort they give, they start to view your presence as default, not privilege, and default never excites, it never surprises, it never compels someone to invest emotionally, and this is the truth you've avoided, because deep down, you've been afraid that if you don't keep showing up, she'll move on. But the reality is, if someone disappears when you stop chasing, they were never yours to begin with. They were simply feeding off your effort, and the longer you enable that dynamic, the more you destroy the one thing that truly makes someone chase you: your ability to walk away without flinching, your ability to choose yourself over breadcrumbs, your willingness to let go of someone who refuses to meet you halfway. And this isn't about pretending to not care. It's about actually living a life that doesn't depend on her response. It's about building such a strong identity, such a rich internal world, such a powerful emotional discipline that you no longer fear silence, you no longer fear distance, because your connection to your purpose outweighs your need for temporary comfort. And that's what draws people in. Not your effort, not your begging, but your absence when it's necessary, your restraint when it's tempting to reach out, your peace when they expect you to react. And if you ever want to understand what truly makes someone return, look at what happens when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop giving without reciprocation, because it's in your silence that their thoughts begin to speak louder. It's in your absence that your presence becomes felt, and it's in your distance that your worth becomes measured. And the key is to understand that this isn't manipulation. It's clarity, it's alignment, it's truth. Because if someone doesn't notice your absence, they never valued your presence. And if they only miss you when you stop giving, then they never deserved you in the first place. And the problem is, most people confuse effort with value, thinking the more you do, the more you'll be appreciated, when in reality, appreciation grows in space, in reflection, in silence. And until you're willing to give someone the opportunity to miss you, you'll never know if what they feel is real or just convenient. And the only way to find out is to step back, not out of bitterness, not out of ego, but because you respect yourself enough to see whether they're drawn to your light or just addicted to your warmth. And that distinction matters, because someone who's drawn to your light will follow you when you lead, will invest when you invest, will pursue you when you pause. But someone who only wants your warmth will take as much as they can until you have nothing left, and then they'll leave when they no longer feel fed. And if you've ever felt used, ever felt like you were the one doing all the work, ever felt like you were always available but never chosen, it's because you refused to pause long enough to see if they were truly invested. And now is the time to change that. Now is the time to stop reaching, to stop checking, to stop feeding one-sided dynamics, and instead reclaim your energy. Because your attention is not a gift, it's currency, and you've been spending it on people who don't deserve it. And it's time to invest that energy into yourself, into your growth, into your mission, into becoming so fulfilled that anyone who walks into your life will either add to it or step out. And that's the mindset that shifts everything. Because you no longer panic when someone pulls away. You no longer feel lost when someone goes quiet. You simply return to yourself, to your goals, to your craft, to your discipline. And that return is magnetic. That focus is attractive. That peace is irresistible. Because in a world full of noise, the one who doesn't chase becomes the one who is noticed. And if she comes back, great. But not because you begged, not because you compromised, but because she saw your value without needing to be reminded. And if she doesn't, even better. because now you're not distracted by someone who only wanted you on their terms, and your energy is no longer being wasted on confusion. And this is the final test of self-worth. Can you sit with uncertainty and still choose yourself? Can you face silence and still stay focused? Can you stop proving and start observing? And the moment you do, everything changes, because you stop showing up for potential and start showing up for results. You stop entertaining half-hearted effort and start requiring full investment. And that's how you let her come to you. Not by being distant on purpose, but by being so deeply connected to your life that you're no longer waiting to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And from that place, you attract everything that's meant to be, without ever chasing what was never real. You've seen what happens when you chase. You lose yourself, your power, your peace. And for what? A message that never comes. A woman who only shows up when it benefits her. Society doesn't want you grounded. It doesn't want you clear. It wants you reactive, emotional, desperate. Because a man who thinks for himself can't be controlled. But if you've made it this far, something in you is done with that life. If you're ready to walk a path built on calm, clarity, and control, then the Stoic Relationship Blueprint is your next step. This is not just a book, it's your foundation. And now it's in audiobook form, so you can soak up the truth while walking, jogging, lifting, or reflecting alone in silence. This isn't for everyone. It's for the few who are ready to stop being emotionally manipulated and start leading. The link is in the comments. Grab it now and keep it forever. If you're done being forgotten, comment, "I choose myself," like this video, and subscribe to help more men find this before they waste another year on someone who never cared.